That would be black girls, black boys, unborn, white girls, white boys, Hispanic girls, Hispanic boys. And also, there are a few Orientals and people from India here in our part of the country. And some of their boys and girls also are submitted to the idol, if you will, of the abortion provider. Not here. The clinic has been shut for 2 decades, but elsewhere, these children are taken for destruction. The Democratic Party, of course, is all for that. But in a way, I'm though I believe in the Republican form of government, I'm Democratic in that the impulse of the people's representation is strong in my breast. It is there, and so it gives me a kind of a better working schnoz than most people. I can sniff out hubris and pride in people who have not as strongly the Democratic impulse that I do. Among those might be people such as Barry Bennett. He is the executive director of the Chattanooga Hamilton County Regional Planning Agency, and Chris Long, the architectural consultant, a kind of a man who gives a lot of his time to the arcana of planning and codes and enforcement of codes, and the understanding of how codes work in for-profit projects. Sent me a copy of the 2030 Comprehensive Plan for Chattanooga. And I find with delight the introduction of this plan, and what strikes me is just how, in a way, such descriptions, such open defenses of comprehensive plans, which are required in the statute. Right, this is required in the Tennessee Code Annotated to have that there be a comprehensive plan, and ours covers 368,000 acres or 542 square miles, 6% urban, 42 suburban, and 30% rural. That's in an area that is well, it covers 3 states, Georgia and Alabama included. But the plan that he gives to which he writes it forward has as its first sentence, "This plan is about diversity." Well, in that very sentence, I see a mind-cracking contradiction. Right? If it's a plan, it can't be about diversity. Plans, by definition, exclude things that are not part of it. Right? By definition, if you have a plan today to go to your job, and then you have 2 errands to run, one hardware store, and another would be picking up your dry cleaning. Well, you've excluded going to church, you've excluded going to the grocery store, and you've excluded having a coffee with a former work colleague who calls you on the phone and says, "Hey, I'm in town for the afternoon. Can we go and drink something?" All right, your plan has excluded those things, though you might be willing to change it. Okay. You are big enough, as Mr. Bennett suggests he is. You're big enough to change your plan with shifting circumstances. But the idea that a plan is about diversity is really, in a way, not true. Now, of course, I know he means something different than what I'm saying, but I'm just highlighting the fact that when you have a plan, it's not about diversity. It's about making one thing happen, right? And that's your goal. However you arrived at that goal, you have it, and you're excluding all kinds of other things that are not part of it. And that's for your benefit, right? You obviously have a plan for your benefit, because as we hear sometimes in the cliches of chamber chapter discussion, if you don't plan, if you plan, what is it? If you plan to fail, you'll fail to plan. If you fail to plan, you'll plan to fail. And I don't think that's always true. Sometimes I think not having a plan is better. Because that way you really are much more open to diversity. Let's just say. But here he says, a plan that focuses on community diversity must address many land use components, the most fundamental of which are open or protected space, residential neighborhoods, commercial, institutional development, and industrial manufacturing facilities. Having a county that is attractive to both employers and respondent residents is vitally important. And he talks about the quality of life. And he says the comprehensive plan is a valuable reference tool that takes into consideration not only public opinion and good planning principles, but also the local political environment and the realities of property rights issues. And he refers to land use in Hamilton County as being in a constant state of transition. Okay, there he's recognizing, you might say the market and how people's needs change, the needs of industry, business change, cultural needs change. People come and go. They migrate. They emigrate and they immigrate from here or to Chattanooga. This plan will provide a foundation for the future orderly growth and development of this community. Well, the problem with that, the whole idea of a foundation of orderly growth and development, is that it excludes the people who are going to be priced out. Now, here you're saying, well, David, you're exercising a kind of left-wing ethic, caring for the poor, a left-wing ethic, and you really should be much more conservative, right? You should be like us. You should want there to be major planning initiatives. You should want there to be pro-Chattanooga, pro-Hamilton County planning initiatives of the kind that Barry Bennett introduces in the intro, which is what I've been quoting. Well, no, I do understand the idea of planning to fail and failing to plan, and I understand that distinction in reverse as well. But I think it's better if we don't have planner types and who are better than us making these plans, and that's what where I'm talking about the democratic impulse, and that would be that you respect common people so much that you are just suspicious to pieces of plans, especially where we have plans where there is a public subsidy, and that is what came up yesterday at the city council. Now, I did not attend the city council meeting. I'm trying to make city council a regular here for you, so that every Wednesday you get some analysis, or if not analysis, at least some discussion, right? Sometimes you have discussion that's really not very analytical. It's just sort of stating what happened. And there's perhaps some benefit to that, to my being there, but I was doing sales calls yesterday and did not have the liberty to depart from that. Right, I had a plan to do that, and so I could not do the other. But Chattanooga.com has a good, very brief summary of what happened, citing several men and women who spoke about stormwater regulations, and also there was some discussion yesterday. I think this may have been Monday. A bond board met, and I was looking this morning at Helen Burns Sharp analysis. It is a very good analysis from ATM, which is Accountability for Taxpayers' Money, her watchdog group. Helen Burns Sharp is doing yeoman's work in something I think that Christian people should become, or to which Christian people who are concerned about the expansion of the state should be involved in. This is the kind of thing that everyone should be involved in because it's local, right? This is not requesting FOIAs out of some agency in Washington. This is dealing with local people, local beneficiaries, local benefactors, in this case, of the MLK extension. There is a benefit that's going to local profit-seeking enterprises, and there really shouldn't be. There really should not be. There shouldn't be a plan A, and then B. There shouldn't be either subsidies to boost or opposition to prevent and block the free market. Oh, David, you're just living in the ideal. You're living in the ideal world, and you're here philosophizing and just giving opinions about something that doesn't exist anymore. We don't have that. We haven't had that for a long time. Get real. We have commercial government today, where government is capitalist, government is investor, government is lender. Look at the whole student loan market. What's it? $4 billion? How many? It's almost $1 trillion. Well, I'm not sure exactly how big it is, but it's a gigantic market, completely taken over by Washington, right? And to get people involved in the scam of college education. That's to support that whole industry, the college industry. Helen Burns Sharp in Chattanooga.com. So I'm really looking at two things from Chattanooga.com. One is about the stormwater hearing that came up yesterday before the council. The effort being to reduce the stormwater requirement. There's how much water has to be trapped, and there's a bid to lower that limit, and we'll talk about that just a little bit later. But in the past few days, Helen Burns Sharp's objections have been drawing notice, and that is about tax increment financing for the extension of Martin Luther King Boulevard down to the river, and she says that that accountability for taxpayer money, that which is basically hers. That's her work. She is the face of that, and really the mind and the handwork that goes into reading all these documents and checking on application forms and seeing changes in documentation that are telling of human interest. That's really her work. So she is worried about this extension where tax increment financing is part of the package. If you print out that essay, she has some observations, and she objects to what effectively is cronyism. And cronyism is where we in government, we on the bond board, we at City Hall, we have good people who are connected to us because we know them because they've appealed to us, right? They've made appeal to us for some favor by government of their enterprise. And there is in the, if you read into this document, the word cronyism comes to mind. She says, for example, for at least 10 years, the owners of these complexes pay no property taxes for city and county services except schools. Walnut Commons does not even pay school taxes. Then the developers pay partial taxes for an additional 4 years. Our city and county governments will abate, which is not collect, about $14 million in property taxes, so that 125 persons or small households can pay only $850 in rent because of these pilot agreements. So this is a discussion about pilots, which again are payments in lieu of taxes that the developers get to encourage their lucubrations, right? To encourage their oiling of commerce, their building of things, and being able to reduce their expenses and make the profit that they need to do the job, right? If they can't, in their calculations, if we can't get this tax benefit, it probably is not worth it. But Helen Burns Sharp says that the TIF proposed for the extent of ML King doesn't pass the but-for test. The but-for test is the one that says we won't do this project, or no, we won't do this project, but for this expense. That would be the subsidy. If we don't get this, in other words, if we don't get the subsidy, we won't do it, and that's we will do it, but for that, or we won't do it, but for that. So now, which one is it? I'm not thinking clearly on that point, but that is called the but-for test, and she mentions that at Chattanooga.com. Just go there and look at her. It's in the opinion section. It is her analysis. You could say it's opinion, but it sounds like pretty good reporting to me. ATM believes there is a more appropriate and less expensive way of paying for the reconfiguration, she says, of West MLK than tax increment financing. She says, use a portion of the $6 million GE Alstom recently paid back to the city and county after its failed pilot project. And it didn't hire the people it said it would and closed down part of its facility. Negotiate with the developer, she says, to reduce the overall cost by about $1 million by eliminating interest payments and removing the apartment subsidy. And she wonders how this program became a funding crisis. And she also says that TIF is an expensive and complicated solution that robs city and county departments of needed revenue for up to 15 years. ATM believes TIF should be reserved for private sector projects that provide public benefit, and that would not happen without the TIF. All right, that's the but-for test. In this case, the Cameron Harbor developers were prepared to build a restaurant and apartments without the realignment of the street and to pay property taxes. So you see, she's not in principle against them, as I think probably I am. But so she's a moderate. Okay, she's moderate, and therefore, because of her moderation, her democratic perspective, her words, I think, should bear some weight. And she has a couple caveats. First, the developers probably were not planning to build a grand boulevard through a prime piece of their property, right? That's the rationale to talk about public financing. In other words, we're not going to build it, so let's get the city to build it, right? And the second one is a current city project will remove 2 travel lanes on Riverfront Parkway from MLK to the Old Giotti Bridge. This public project will result in 138 additional on-street parking spaces. The primary beneficiary is the Cameron Harbor Development, which owns most of the property on either side of the parkway. Well, I can't go longer on that, but I just leave it to you. This morning I was getting my coffee, and I said, I've just got so much to get to today, and I want to read Helen's analysis in detail and really think about it. Not having her available this morning, so I wanted to give an analysis, and I said, I'm just going to skip reading my Bible. well, I said no, and I had my first cup, and I put it there on my slightly dirty placemat. Well, my son doesn't clean the placemats after dinner every day, like probably he should, and so there was a little bit of spot on there. And I put my coffee cup down. I said, no, I'm going to go ahead and read my scriptures. Well, I was reading in the assignment was Job 38, 39, well, 39, I think maybe 40, and what I found was a gem, and you might say a little encouragement from God to not skip my deep reading, right? The real reading that I do is not the news, not legal analysis, and not not the latest on Devon Kelly, but truisms that go back that go deep and go back. Well, I found this. I found the use of the word driver. Now, I've been doing some reading and some legal review of the difference between driving and traveling, and here's the distinction that you need to know. Okay, it's in the word drive is in the Bible many times, often in the context of driving out the Jebusites, the Hivites, and the Canaanites, that kind of thing, pushing out. But driver is a word that is opposite of the word travel. Now, and that's true in Tennessee law, as I'm going to make notice of. Okay, I'm going to give notice about this distinction. And the passage in Job is the great passage. Just by the way, so you'll know what I was reading. It starts at actually a chapter ahead. And it's actually God talking here. It says, where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? To what were its foundations fastened, he says. Or who laid its cornerstone, right? That's the speech. Well, it goes on into the next chapter, and there's this. He scorns the tumult of the city. He does not heed the shouts of the driver. And there I was, it just jumped out at me. There I was, my incidental reading on my assignment, and there came the word driver. Well, it's interesting that here's the distinction. Traveling in the Bible, the word travel, is always something that's about the liberty of the people, right? Travel is what free people do. And let me just give you some examples. The word driver, there are two, just quickly here. Driver has either the soldier in the chariot driving and serving his king, okay? So it's a master-servant relationship, and the servant is propelling himself forward in conquest or defense. The other one is of a slave or someone pushing or pulling, or directing some kind of animal ahead. You're driving the horse, right? So driver in our language, even in English, right? Driver is the one who's carrying freight, right? He's driving a horse, pulling a wagon behind him with a cargo, or maybe people, right? If it's a stagecoach, it would be people. So driving is something that is in a subjection to some other party. You're carrying someone for hire or something for hire, you're carrying it, or you're a soldier, right? Again, both of them are servant categories of people. Now, travel, just by the way, is a free activity. Traveling is, let's see here. For example, when the Israelites wanted to pass through foreign lands, let us pass through your country, they say. We will not go through any field or vineyard or drink any water from any well. We will travel along the king's highway and not turn to the right or to the left until we have passed through your territory. And then it goes on in the next chapter. Let us pass through your country, they ask. We will not turn aside into any field or vineyard or drink any water from any well. We will travel along the king's highway. Again, we will travel freely in free will, okay? In the very first use of travel in the Bible is Exodus 13. That was the one I just read, was Numbers 20 and 21. By day the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light so that they could travel by day or night. So again, traveling is what a free people do. Remember, this reference here is to their departure from Egypt. This is David Tulis. I do thank you for giving me just a minute of your time. We're live here at New York Radio, 92.7 and 95.3 HD4. And I've got some important announcements, very important announcements I want you to make note of. We are radio, so we survive and prosper when our advertisers do. So make sure you patronize all of our advertisers here at Nooga Radio. And I'll be right back. I've got some important things to get to. I do thank you for giving me just a minute of your time. Thank you.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4.